Hey guys, Nick here with What Game Now, and we have finished the painting process on these miniatures. So what we did from the last video is they have been clear coated. One coat of Tester's Gloss Coat, one coat of Tester's Dull Coat, and then a quick airbrush spray with some Vallejo matte varnish. You can paint it on if you want to. I went ahead and painted in the metallics, and the reason we did that after the varnish is because a matte varnish takes the shine off the metallics, and I want them to be shiny. And then the last thing I did was paint the rims of the bases, and the reason I did that is just for consistency. See, the rest of these models are painted that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the base, what I put on it, how we're going to get that, and a little bit of stuff about the decals. You can see faction logo and number. So basing is fairly simple. I have some Citadel sand here. This is a long out of production product. Thankfully I've got a few tubs of it specifically for this army, and it's not going to get used on anything else. And to apply it, it's fairly easy. Old crappy paintbrush and some Elmer's glue. Any generic white glue will do. What we do is we simply apply glue to the base of the model. You can go ahead and put some aside on a palette like you would a paint, or try and apply it directly to the model. Use the crappy paintbrush and massage it around the base. Eventually, when the entire base is covered in paint, put it in the sand. I like to do a sliding motion like this. I'll put it in and kind of do this kind of bowing in and out motion just to make sure it gets everywhere. Tap the excess sand off, and you're mostly done. Do that for everybody. And then what I do, because Elmer's glue, if you're not aware, is actually water soluble. In order to help keep it down, what I do is I do a second coat of Elmer's glue once the first one is dry. I'll take some Elmer's glue and I'll water it down to almost a paint-like consistency where I can paint it on with a brush. It's very watered down. And then just soak that over the sand on the base. And that just gives you a nice sealing layer to keep everything down. So basing sand, all you need to do is, all I do is one coat of Elmer's glue, apply sand over coat of Elmer's glue while it's still wet. Once it's dry, take some watered down Elmer's glue and apply over the model. That does work for things like grass and static grass and such. I know some people use spray bottles to get it. If you use the vertical static grass, it's called static grass because it uses static electricity to get it nice. It sits vertical like actual grass. That doesn't need this, but anything else that might come off or rub off, I go ahead and give it a coat with the second round of Elmer's. Then you may notice I have some tufts on here, these grassy tufts. Those are from the Army Painter. Those are specifically their Wasteland tufts, and all they are is you peel them off, put a little bit of super glue on the bottom of them, and just stick them where you want them. And you can also do this with rocks and things like that. Then the last thing we're going to do is apply decals. So these are the DreamPod 9 water slide decals for a new coalition. All we do is we cut out the decals we want. Now it is worth noting that all the decals here, this is one sheet, all the decals are printed on it, and the sheet itself is clear on blue paper. So if you cut a decal out, it's not blue, it's actually totally clear, or whatever you see here as blue is actually clear. So you cut out the decal you want. I tend to cut them out in square shapes just to make them easier to work with. And you put those in some water and you let them sit for 10 minutes or so. Then you're going to use two products, Microset and Microsol. These are the only ways to do decals and make them look nice. What I do first is I apply Microset with a paintbrush over the area I want the decal. So I'll apply a little bit of Microset. Then I'll apply the decal, and the way you do that is the decal will actually come off the back paper. I gently use a detail paintbrush, set it into position, kind of maneuver it around where I want it to. And then when you're done with that, just let that sit for a little bit. Once it's sat for a little bit, hit it with one more round of Microset. Be very careful because Microset actually takes the adhesion off a little bit, so you might move the decal around by accident. Get the decal on there, let it dry for a little bit, apply another round of Microset very gently, very lightly. Let that completely dry and close with one round of Microsol. This goes over the decal again. And from that point on, if you want to, you can go ahead and hit it with a matte varnish, and you're good to go. Now, I do want to point out that technically you should do this before you do the matte varnish. I don't, just because when I first did this army, I didn't. Yeah, I did it after the fact. You really shouldn't do that. Decal should be done when the gloss coat's on, but not the matte finish. I didn't do it because I wasn't. This was the first army that I really experimented with decals on, and I do everything the same way just for consistency's sake, even though I know how to do it better now. So what happens when you're done is you'll end up with something like this. Decals are on, and these decals, the reason you put the microcell and the microset on is so they adhere to the shape. Sometimes decals don't like to adhere to weird shapes. Microcell and microset helps that, and the matte finish makes it so that they don't stand out on a matte model. Basing gives it a little bit of life. And one thing I do want to point out, and I forgot to mention this with the sand, make sure that your base is actually painted under the sand. Or under sand or dirt or gravel or whatever you're doing. Paint it something fairly close to that. That way, if any of it gets knocked off, it's not noticeable. If there was black underneath the sand, it would be much more noticeable. And in general, I just don't think it looks as good. You would know there's nothing behind it. That's why I left. These are the brighter tan, paint the ribs. So that actually takes us through from box to battlefield. You guys saw these models. They were literally in boxes. And we're going to close off with one more video, kind of touching everything together. But once we do that, you'll have seen these models start from a box of a pile of parts into fully painted and finished models. So, there's one last thing I can address before we mention this, or before we close this. Magnets. I use a magnetic tray to transport my models from between games. It's really nice because if it moves, the models don't move. So you can table shake a little bit. The models aren't going to move that much, which is really nice, prevents damage. The magnets themselves are 1/4 inch by 1/16 inch, if I recall right, N52 rare earth magnets. Just punch that into like eBay or Google or something like that, and you'll find plenty of them. They average. I got a seller that I get them from for, it's about 100 for $8. So they're not that expensive. You know, most models are 2, maybe 4. Sometimes I only put 1 magnet on them, depending on how heavy the model is. And yeah, bit of a story here. As I was hauling these in here to film, this guy fell off and actually bounced on my floor. You will notice that there is no chipping damage on the paint job. That is why we put the clear coat on. If I had not put clear coat on, there would be like exposed metal on this thing everywhere. So with that, guys, there's going to be one more video in this series, which is all of this stuff finished 100%, put them next to some existing models. And then we'll talk about some closing pieces of information when it comes to actually getting your models on the table. Stuff that doesn't really nicely fit into the other videos. So with that, guys, have a good one. I'll catch you later.
Hey, this is Dave. If you like what we're doing here at What Game Now, go ahead and click on one of the videos which should be on either side of me, or click right in the middle and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell once you subscribe so that you know when we have new videos. Please go ahead and share us with your friends. Let everybody know that we're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all of our subscribers already. And we look forward to bringing you more content every chance that we get.